6 months after the divorce, the billionaire CEO received a call that knocked the breath out of him. "Sir, she named you as the father." For 5 long years, Noelle had guarded a secret with her entire soul. Her son, the son of the billionaire who hadn't just broken her heart, he'd crushed it. She'd built a small, warm world for 4-year-old, a world that couldn't be further from the icy skyscrapers and ruthless empire that consumed the man she once loved. But now that world was collapsing. One desperate decision was about to put her face to face with Cassian, the one man she swore she would never see again. And when he laid eyes on the little boy with his unmistakable features, their past and future collided in one devastating moment. 5 years earlier, the divorce papers had felt less like a separation and more like surrender. Noelle had finally accepted she would always come second to Hale Global. Cassian, commanding, brilliant, impossibly driven, had turned into a stranger inside their own home. His ambition had become a fortress, and she'd been left shivering on the outside. The divorce was brutal. It left her with nothing but a shattered heart and a secret she discovered weeks later. Those 2 pink lines on a pregnancy test became her reason to disappear. It wasn't revenge. It was protection. She refused to let her child be swallowed by the same world that had devoured Cassian. Noelle's life now was humble and quiet. A tiny apartment with creaky floors, evenings filled with crayons, bedtime stories, and the smell of pancakes. She worked as a receptionist at a community clinic, enough to survive, enough to stay close to Arlo. He was her whole world, a bright little boy who knew nothing of his father's billions or the silent ache in his mother's chest. She convinced herself it was enough. Peace was a luxury she'd fought hard for, but peace doesn't last. On a Tuesday morning, a notice was shoved under her door. The building had been sold. 60 days to vacate. Her savings were laughable compared to the city's rising rents. Days later, the clinic announced it was losing funding and shutting down. Jobless and almost homeless. The world she built so carefully began to crack. In a last attempt at survival, she learned about a philanthropic gala awarding financial grants. It was a fantasy, but she had no other options. She put on her one decent dress, left Arlo with a trusted neighbor, and stepped into a ballroom full of glittering wealth. That's when she saw him, Cassian, Hale, standing beneath a crystal chandelier. Commanding attention with his cold elegance, he looked just as devastatingly handsome and untouchable as the day she walked away. Their eyes met, and for a moment, time dissolved. He started toward her, confusion written across his face, but someone stepped between them. In that same moment, a small figure darted from behind a curtain. Arlo. He must have woken and followed the sitters' teenage daughter working the event. He ran straight toward the most imposing man in the room, his father. Cassian looked down. The world froze. A 4-year-old stared up with Cassian's dark hair and the same piercing silver eyes. The confrontation was instant behind closed doors. Voices low and sharp. "Is he mine?" Cassian's voice was a controlled snarl, thick with shock and betrayal. Noelle didn't lie. She nodded. Silence stretched, suffocating. Cassian's shock twisted into suspicion. He didn't see a son. He saw a threat to his controlled, perfect world. He demanded a DNA test, cold, clinical, businesslike. Noelle agreed, heartbreaking that he looked at Arlo like a liability to be verified. When the results came in, Cassian didn't feel joy, only guilt, shock, a crushing sense of responsibility. He had a son whose first steps, first words, first everything he had missed. Cassian's solution was not reconciliation. It was control. He tried to fix everything the only way he knew, money. Within days, Noelle and Arlo were moved into a penthouse high above the city. Floor-to-ceiling windows, marble, everything, and not a hint of warmth. Toys arrived in mountains. Gadgets, clothes, expensive distractions. Arlo ignored in favor of his worn wooden blocks. Co-parenting was chaos. Cassian tried to schedule fatherhood between meetings, showing up in tailored suits and corporate arrogance. Noelle, who knew Arlo's favorite snack, his fears, the way he scrunched his nose when he was thinking, watched in frustration. "He's a child, Cassian, not a quarterly investment," she snapped after he tried replacing Arlo's beloved ragged teddy bear. "I'm providing for you both," he shot back. "Something you were clearly struggling to do." It was a dagger, and they both knew it. Their old wounds festered inside the cold luxury of Cassian's world. The turning point came from a fever. Late at night, Arlo burning with heat, struggling to breathe. Noelle rushed him to the ER in blind panic. She called the only person who had a right to be there. Cassian arrived in minutes, hair disheveled, shirt half-tucked, the armor of a billionaire stripped away. He didn't demand. He simply stayed, terrified, human, a father. Hours passed. When Arlo's fever broke, Noelle and Cassian looked at each other with raw relief, and something fragile shifted between them. Later that week, Cassian came home early. No gifts, no announcements. He simply sat on the floor with Arlo and helped him build a tower. His expensive jacket tossed aside, sleeves rolled up. He was finally learning his son's language. Just as hope flickered, everything collapsed again. Cassian's mother arrived, a woman who had always seen Noelle as a problem. not a person. During dinner, she made a cutting remark about Noelle's fortunate timing, implying she used the child for financial security. It was gasoline on every insecurity Noelle carried. That night, the argument erupted. Was this your plan? Cassian demanded. To show up with a child when you needed money. Her voice broke. You think I'd use my son like that? I left because your world would have destroyed him. Because you cared more about your empire than your own wife. In the middle of their fight, a small voice interrupted. Arlo stood in the doorway, clutching his teddy bear, lip trembling. Are you leaving again, Daddy? Silence, heavy, crushing. Cassian's face crumbled. He knelt, pulling Arlo into his arms, tears burning his eyes. No, I'm not leaving. I'm right here. He looked up at Noelle, his voice trembling. I'm sorry. For everything, it wasn't a perfect fix. Trust was fragile, their past still raw, but for the first time, they were moving forward together not as but as parents. Their healing happened in the quiet moments. Cassian teaching, Arlo to tie shoelaces, Noelle laughing, Hi laughing at Cassian's terrible jokes. All three curled together on the sofa, reading the same storybook for the 100th time. They weren't built on broken pieces anymore. We're building something new, family, and the secret that once tore them apart became the very thing that stitched their hearts back together.